So I was on a coaching call the other day and my client was talking about how she went to Starbucks and she didn't hold the door for the next person that was coming in as she was leaving. And then last minute she's like, oh, I'm sorry. And she like opens the door even more. And his reaction for what she did to try to hold the door open to be nice was like,
oh, thank you.
Like she's trying too hard. So then after that happened, she was telling me on the phone how she was like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. That was so embarrassing. Why am I not just normal? Why am I thinking about this so much? So this is an example of overthinking. In today's video, I want to share with you 3 ways to stop overthinking in your life. I'm Sarena Hess, and I'm a confidence coach for women. So let's talk about the word rumination real quick. Rumination means to chew on something over and over and over again. Grossly enough, the word comes from when a cow chews their food and then swallows and spits it back up and chews it again. I know, sorry, that's really gross, but that's where the word rumination comes from. And what we do, how we ruminate, is we have a thought and we chew on that thought. And we chew it some more. And we chew it over and over and over in our brains, and it doesn't leave us alone. When we overthink and have ruminating thoughts going through us, it can halt us from doing anything productive in the outside world. Overthinking is what happens when your mind is not actively engaged in what's going on around you. We tend to overthink when we're doing activities that we're very familiar with. Washing the dishes, on the drive home, doing laundry, right before you're gonna go to bed. Your brain checks out and it wanders over to your default thoughts. When we overthink, we are so involved in our internal world that we almost shut off our perception of what's going on outside of us. We are just thinking about what we did, if we did it right, if there was another way that we could have done it. If you're at a party and you said something stupid and then after that you're like, oh my gosh, why did I say that? And usually what happens when we overthink is we're repeating the same words over and over and playing out the same scenarios. So the first step to stopping overthinking is recognize when you are overthinking. A lot of times we do things subconsciously without even realizing that we're actually doing it. Maybe get a pen and a piece of paper and start writing down, when do I overthink? What are scenarios that I overthink about? Do I overthink more right before bed? Do I overthink on my way home? What are the situations that I overthink? So get a pen and piece of paper and start to identify, when do you overthink? Are there certain triggers that make you overthink? In what scenarios does that actually happen? The second and most important element for stopping this habit of overthinking is to get outside of yourself. Sarena, what do you mean by that? Okay, get outside of yourself. When you're overthinking, you are very much in your own little world. You're very much involved in what's going on up here. And you're not very engaged in what's going on around you. So for me, I notice that I get the most depressed and the most sad when I'm inward focused. But when I'm outward focused, asking how can I help others? What can I do for someone else? What's going on around me? I feel happier personally. I have a few recommendations for what you can do to get outside of yourself. My first piece of advice is to do some sort of physical activity, whether that's yoga or going for a walk or going to work out, whatever you're doing, just getting your body moving and your body active so that way you're not so focused on what's going on in here and you're more engaged on what's going on outside. Shifting your focus from your inner world to what is going on around you. Now, when you're moving your body in some way, whatever you're doing, I want you to be mindful while you're doing it. So a lot of times we do things and we're just mentally checked out and our brain is somewhere else. But I want to challenge you to be mindful. Now, mindfulness basically means being very aware and very present to what's going on around you. When you're on a walk, how does it feel to be outside? Are the birds chirping around you? Are there cars driving by? Are there little kids playing on the sidewalk? The more mindful that you can be with where you are and what you're doing, the more you can get out of your head and engage in the world around you. Other ways that you can practice being mindful are doing like meditations. So I really like the app called Headspace. The guy has like a really soothing British voice. So you should really try that if you're struggling with overthinking. Basically what happens is it's an app you download and then you have your headphones in or your AirPods and you're sitting and the guy's talking, and so he's like, so imagine you're on a park bench and you're just sitting there and you're noticing your thoughts go by. You're not trying to grab onto your thoughts as they're flying by, but you're just kind of sitting there watching them go by. And you're not partial, you're not jumping in and getting worked up and anxious. You're just sitting and watching them go by. I would really encourage you to try Headspace if you have a very cluttered mind. Another app that's good is called Calm. I'll put them both in the description. But even if you're like, Sarena, I'm not sure about meditation, like that seems kind of weird to me. I thought it was weird too. If you're struggling with overthinking, wouldn't you just want to try it and see if it works for you? Give it a few tries, like a fair chance. After like 5 times of trying it, then you can tell me you don't like it or not. But for me, it really helped calm my mind and help me just become more present to what's going on. Because when you're overthinking, you're actually like taking yourself out of your like moment that you're in. If you were with your family, you're literally taking yourself out of that moment and putting yourself in a more stressful moment over here. Wouldn't you want to be in the loving and kind moment, and wouldn't you want to be present? If you answered yes, you want to be present, I would challenge you to try the physical activity. Try being mindful, maybe try a type of meditation like Headspace. If overthinking is taking control of your life and you're losing sleep, not being present with loved ones, and stressing yourself out, then it is time that you take initiative and start taking steps to overcoming that battle. You don't have to be a victim of overthinking. Like, it's possible to not overthink anymore. It's possible to try different activities to stop overthinking. The first step to stopping overthinking is to be aware when it's happening. Acknowledge what's going on and kind of catch yourself like, oh, I did it again. Oh, that's a moment I overthink a lot. The second step was getting outside of your head, working out and getting physical, being mindful while doing so, and maybe trying a meditation. My third and final step is to ask yourself this question when you catch yourself overthinking. How can I use this situation to improve myself in the future? Or how can I use this situation to give me an advantage in the future? We'll go back to the example of my client that I shared at the beginning of this video. So she was overthinking because she didn't hold a door and then she like over dramatically held a door open for someone. That's what she was overthinking about. How can I use this situation to improve myself and give me an advantage in the future? An advantage she could get is, okay, when I leave stores, I open doors for people. And then that would make her better because it would make her more polite. Another advantage she could have gotten from that situation is, I'm not in control of other people's perceptions of me. What she was trying to do was really nice, and it wasn't her fault that he acted like that, because we're not in control of other people's situations. So when you're overthinking about a situation, instead of having a downward spiral that sounds like this,
You're so dumb. You're so ugly. You're so awkward. Why did you do that?
like, that's not helpful. Why don't you have a positive conversation like this? This happened. I can't go back and change it. So what good can come from this situation? And maybe it's a really embarrassing situation, like you had a presentation to give at work and you stood up and you totally blanked, like, oh, that's so embarrassing and I feel for you. But what could you learn from that situation? You could learn, okay, before I give a presentation, I have to rehearse like the back of my hand. Or before I give a presentation, I have to speak in front of my friends and family to get that practice. Instead of overthinking and instead of ruminating and chewing on the bad thoughts over and over and over again, you're so awkward, you're so awkward, you're so, no. Instead of doing all that, I challenge you to follow these 3 steps. Let me know if these steps were helpful, and if you try them for yourself, let me know how that goes for you. And if you're watching this video and you're like, Sarena, I don't overthink anymore, I've overcome that struggle, that's great. And if that's the case, then can you share what you did in the comments below? This is a community. We're here to give advice to each other. So if something you say could help others, please comment it below. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. Each week I make videos on personal development and confidence for women. Also, if you like free stuff, make sure you go to the description and download my confidence building checklist.